Gaming motivation is a way for you to figure out if some of the best rated games out there are a good fit for you. This is done by rating a game based on the 6 main motivators as determined by Quantric Foundry, and if you want to know what your motivations are, there's a link in the description where you can test yourself. Today we have the Escapists 2, a game published by Team 17 who are the same guys who want to sell NFTs of worms. Let's get right into it. The Escapists 2 is, at its core, a prison escape game. Your main goal is to find a way to escape the prison without catching the attention of the guards. Each day in prison, you have a strict routine that you have to follow. If you miss any of your set activities, the security in the prison goes up, and if you miss a roll call, then the prison goes into lockdown. You'd think this means that the entire game is one action-packed adventure where you get to pull your own Michael Scofield as you get together a crew to bust out. But to be honest, I was sorely disappointed with just how little action there was in this game. In order for a game to motivate action-oriented players, there needs to be some sort of destruction or excitement in the game. I wouldn't really consider there to be much destruction here, since the most you can do is destroy a wall or clog a toilet. As for the excitement, well, there isn't any. The combat here is mostly rather shallow. You have a lot of different weapons you can use, sure, but there's no real reason to use most of them, and the combat itself isn't too difficult since all you can do is punch and block. You could spend your time training to make your attack stronger or so you can attack more often, but there's no reason to. Partly because you can just easily lure the one person away and block all their attacks, so fighting them isn't that difficult, but also just because it isn't necessary. A lot of the ways to escape prison revolve around crafting something that helps you escape. Maybe you need a tool to help you chip through a wall to break out, or maybe you need to make a fake gun to steal a helicopter. The issue is, in order to craft these items that you need to escape, you need to both do a rather tedious minigame and you need to find materials around the prison. This means that you can either buy the materials from inmates, which is unlikely since their inventory is randomized, or you can try to find it in any chest around the map. These chests don't refresh their inventory often either, so sometimes you just have to sit there and wait for them to get more items so you can finally get what you need to escape. I don't know about you guys, but I personally don't find sitting around and waiting for the game to progress to be very exciting. And even though there are a few prisons that have a time limit and where the guards attack you on sight, I still don't think that's enough to warrant people playing this game solely for the action. I give the action a 2 out of 5. Freeze. After the first Escapist game released, the #1 requested feature for the sequel was multiplayer. And to the developer's credit, I think the multiplayer is extremely well done. Aside from Bluefire having to join mid-session so he missed the first roll call and immediately went to solitary, we never had any issues trying to play. The game itself ran smoothly and it honestly felt like we were playing local co-op. The actual mechanics in the multiplayer personally left a little bit to be desired. Like I said earlier, on each map there are multiple different ways to escape the prison. Some of these ways are only possible if you're in multiplayer, and some are only possible when you're in single player. At first, I was really interested in all of the unique ways that the game would utilize having multiple players to escape in a prison, but in reality, all the game did was add these doors and buttons that you had to hold onto for your friends to pass through. There's also a competitive mode where you could race to see who escapes the prison first, but with how many times Bluefire killed me, it kind of felt like we were competing already, so I never tried it. I was honestly a bit disappointed, so if you're expecting groundbreaking ideas with how to play and escape with friends, then you'd be better off looking at the Steam Workshop or for a different game entirely. I'll still give Social a 5 out of 5 since I imagine that the people who already love the core aspect of the Escapists will love the multiplayer here. Plus, the inclusion of the Steam Workshop is always a nice way to increase the social factor of any game. The mastery in this game solely depends on how you want to play. I would personally argue that a lot of the challenge in this game stems from the RNG of trying to get the items you need every day. The mini-games to level up your skills are easy and rather boring, the fighting here isn't that difficult, and if you really wanted to, you can often easily escape each prison in a minute or two by using a different speedrun strategy. There's no real way to lose on most maps either, since the worst punishment for getting caught is just losing all your current items and going into solitary for a bit. So if you're someone that just wants to complete each level and immediately move on, this isn't the game for you. That being said, the strategy required in this game is actually a lot more complicated than you think. Each prison has a unique layout and a unique schedule that you have to keep on each day to avoid raising suspicion. That means that if you want to escape, you're going to have to plan out each day carefully. I usually spent the first day trying to figure out where I had to be and when, so that way on future days I could arrive to places I need to be before the schedule wanted me to be there, and I could therefore maximize the time I had doing whatever I actually wanted to do. Some maps also have different obstacles like the metal detectors that detect if you have any illicit contraband and alert any nearby guards, so you have to plan your pathing accordingly. Guards also announce the cells that they will search every day, so if you have contraband you can either hide it in your chest or on your person. There's a lot to take into consideration while playing the Escapists, and it will definitely take you a little bit of time to truly master each level, and for that I give mastery a 3 out of 5.
fuck does that mean?
When it comes to games that motivate by achievement, they usually entice the player to either gain as much power as they can in the world or to experience everything that each game has to offer. You could technically become the most powerful prisoner by maxing your stats, gaining as much money as you can, and crafting the best gear for yourself, but there's no real point to doing so. The Escapists 2 is much better at engaging the player to try to experience everything the game has to offer instead. On each level, there are multiple different ways to escape, and by completing each escape method on a map, you're rewarded with a different cosmetic. Complete enough escapes and you can also unlock more maps. There's also a lot of achievements for this game on Steam, and unlike most other games, there are achievements for completing tasks that you might not normally do, like completing a quota of the kitchen job whilst being naked. But for the most part, there's also some parts of the game that aren't worth experiencing either. Each prison has different favors you can complete for people for money and different jobs you can do, but there's no reason to go out of your way to experience each one individually when they all boil down to the same basic ideas. Honestly, I don't know if there's enough here to collect and complete to really justify saying that the game motivates achievement-oriented players, so for that I give achievement a 2 out of 5. Now, I want you to sit there for a second and try to recall the last thing you watched or played that really immersed you into that world. What was the last story with expansive narratives and deeply intriguing characters? When was the last time you felt like you were able to escape into this world to be someone else, to be somewhere else? If you said The Escapists 2, you're a liar. The game does have customization, so you could theoretically create your own prison cast of prisoners and guards alike, and hell, they even have some popular YouTubers already in the game as their own characters. But unlike The Sims, where each character can have their own personalities, their own goals, their own lives, here all it does is just reskin the characters. I'm not saying this is a bad thing per se, but I am saying that people aren't going to be playing The Escapists because it's an extremely immersive game. I give the immersion a 1 out of 5. I'm a creeper, Minecraft Grim Reaper. As most of you probably guessed, the game where you can escape prison in any number of ways is an extremely creative game. There's tons of different pathways and intricacies to each prison, and the game actively rewards you for trying to experiment with new ideas and new paths. There's not much that's impossible to do in this game. Someone has the job you want? Beat them up and take it. Want to run around in circles to distract the guards while your friend beats someone else up? Awesome! All the pieces to the puzzle are here. It's up to you to find out how you want to solve it. And while the rigid schedules and the monotonous gameplay really feels like it inhibits how action-packed the game can be at times, I feel like this only proves how much the game enforces creativity. Sometimes it's only when you have the most restrictions put upon you that you can come up with the most creative of ideas. Technically, this all falls under only one half of the creativity motivation, discovery. The other half, design, focuses more on how you can freely express yourself in the world around you. And although normally I would try to take both halves in equal measure when coming up with a score, I think that most creative players are playing the prison escape game to explore the prison to find the different ways to escape, rather than trying to find ways to express themselves. I give the creativity a 4 out of 5. If I'm being honest, I remember this game being a lot more fun when I played it years ago. I think now that I'm a lot more used to the instant gratification that a lot of the current games provide, it's a lot harder for me to go back to a game that rewards patience and planning above all else. But the game itself is still fun and interesting, and I would recommend it for a couple different groups of people. Anybody who loves the idea of trying to find different ways to escape a prison with or against friends will definitely enjoy The Escapists. There isn't too much action or achievement here to really motivate people, and anybody who wants an extremely immersive experience should definitely look elsewhere. But for everybody else, this isn't the worst game out there. Anyway, I hope to see you all again next week. Peace out.